There are tons of rockumentaries, biopics, concert films, and musician cameos in mainstream movies. But my favorite kind of rock and roll flick? It's the fictional stories built entirely around a real band or solo artist. Movies which were designed specifically to promote their legacies. There's nearly a 75-year history of these kinds of movies. Let's start with The King. Between 1956 and 1965, Elvis Presley starred in a jaw-dropping 31 films. His big screen debut was Love Me Tender, a Civil War drama, but he quickly found his groove in lighter musical comedies. Movies like Jailhouse Rock, King Creole, and G.I. Blues all mixed narrative storytelling with in-universe performances, usually casting him as either a rebel or a smooth-talking everyman. By the early 60s, the formula was set. Sun-drenched beach scenes, breezy romances, and a soundtrack full of Elvis hits. Blue Hawaii, Girls, 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 and Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret are perfect examples. Critics rolled their eyes, but audiences flocked to theaters. And honestly, they're fun, fizzy snapshots of pop culture in post-World War II America. Then came the Beatles. Between 1964 and 1970, they starred in 4 movies, each more ambitious and weirder than the last. A Hard Day's Night kicked things off with a fast, funny, mock doc-style look at a fictional day in the life of the Fab Four. Help ramped up the absurdity, throwing the band into a globe-trotting adventure with cults, sacrificial rings, and slapstick mayhem. Magical Mystery Tour, which was mostly Paul's idea, aired on British TV and felt more like a surreal fever dream than a traditional film. Critics hated it at the time. And then there's Yellow Submarine, an animated acid trip with the Beatles' music front and center. The band didn't even voice their own characters, and they initially hated the way they were drawn. But after seeing the finished version, they actually liked it so much they agreed to a short live-action cameo at the end. In 1968, the Monkees blew up their squeaky clean image with Head. This movie is part satire, part psychedelic fever dream, part anti-war screed, and entirely unlike their TV show. It jumps between genres with wild visuals, sharp commentary, and a killer soundtrack. It confused the hell out of people when it came out, but over time, it earned cult classic status. Then, in 1975, The Who dropped Tommy, a full-blown rock opera brought to life by director Ken Russell. It tells the story of a deaf, dumb, and blind kid who became a spiritual icon and pinball wizard. The visuals are intense, surreal, sometimes disturbing, and packed with big names like Elton John, Tina Turner, and Anne Margaret. It's basically a religious experience in glitter and distortion. A year later, the song Remains the Same hit theaters. This was Led Zeppelin's answer to concert film, with blistering footage from their Madison Square Garden shows. But they didn't stop there. They added dreamlike fantasy sequences representing each band member's alter ego. The result? Part concert, part mythic self-portrait, it was loud and over-the-top in true Zeppelin fashion. Then there's Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park, a made-for-TV movie that feels like Scooby-Doo on acid. The band plays super-powered versions of themselves, fighting a mad scientist and robot clones at an amusement park. It's ridiculous, awkward, and completely mesmerizing in that what the hell am I watching kind of way. In 1979 and 1980, we got an unintentional punk rock trilogy, starting with the great rock and roll Swindle, a tongue-in-cheek punk as performance art take on the Sex Pistols. It's part documentary, part anarchic fever dream, with manager Malcolm McLaren narrating like a puppet master pulling strings. It's chaotic, yes, but more in a calculated, wink-at-the-camera kind of way. Next up, one of my personal favorites, Rock and Roll High School. This one is punk rock rebellion in movie form. A Ramones-obsessed teenager and her friends go to war with a joyless high school principal, with the Ramones leading the charge. It's loud, ridiculous, sexy, and full of slapstick humor and punk rock joy. Then, in 1980, the circle is complete with Rude Boy, a raw, semi-fictional look at the Clash through the eyes of a disillusioned Londoner who becomes their roadie. It's gritty, political, and feels like it could fall apart at any second, which kind of fits the era perfectly. Now let's flip the script for a minute. So far we've talked about real bands who played fictional versions of themselves, but sometimes it can go the other way. Fictional bands created for movies that went on to become real touring acts. Take Eddie and the Cruisers. It's a moody mystery about a 1960s band whose frontman disappears under suspicious circumstances. Years later, a journalist digs into the mystery. The band didn't exist, but the music performed by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, who had previously been a barely known act from the Northeast, got so popular that the band became legit hit makers. Same year, different vibe. The Blues Brothers. What started as a Saturday Night Live sketch turned into a full-blown band and a cult classic movie. Jake and Elwood Blues go on
a mission from God
to reunite their band and save their orphanage, dodging cops, Nazis, and country singers along the way. It's packed with legendary musical cameos and absurd action. And yes, they really did tour and record afterwards. Then there's This Is Spinal Tap, the holy grail of fictional rock bands. A mockumentary that skewers every excess of rock stardom. It gave us exploding drummers, undersized Stonehenge props, and the immortal line,
"These go to 11.
Spinal Tap became so iconic that the actors started touring as the band. There's also a sequel due out in September of this year. The Commitments follows a group of working-class Dubliners forming a soul band. It's about talent, infighting, and brief fame. And though the band was fake, the actors ended up touring as the Commitments in real life because people just couldn't get enough. Okay, back to real bands in fictional stories. Back to the 80s. The Wall is a dark, surreal visual companion to Pink Floyd's iconic album, tracing the psychological collapse of a rock star named Pink. Through haunting imagery, animation, and minimal dialogue, it explores trauma, isolation, war, and fame, brick by brick. It's intense, symbolic, and emotionally raw. In Purple Rain, Prince stars as The Kid, a gifted but troubled musician trying to find his sound while dealing with abuse, rivalries, and romance. It's part autobiography, part power fantasy, and entirely electrifying. The performances are unreal, and the whole thing became a cultural landmark, cementing Prince's place in history as one of the greatest and most talented artists of all time. Then there's It Couldn't Happen Here, a weird Pet Shop Boys film that's more dream logic than plot. It's loaded with strange characters, social satire, and the feeling that you're watching someone else's waking dream. It's not for everyone, but it's unforgettable. In 1988, Run DMC and Beastie Boys hit the big screen in Tougher Than Leather, a gritty, over-the-top action flick that blends blaxploitation vibes with music industry satire. It's loud, messy, and totally of its time, but it's also a raw snapshot of hip-hop at a cultural crossroads. Directed by Rick Rubin, it's not necessarily good, but it's fascinating. Gift, starring Jane's Addiction and Casey Nicolay, is dark, disjointed, and loaded with sex, addiction, and live music. It's more of a visual art project than a traditional film, gritty and raw in that early 90s alt-rock way. Then came Spice World, which is basically the Beatles movies on bubblegum and glitter. It's self-aware, packed with cameos, and unapologetically fun. Critics hated it, but it crushed at the box office and became a comfort movie for a whole generation. 8 Mile is loosely based on Eminem's early life. It's dirty, grounded, and has a surprisingly emotional core. Lose Yourself wasn't just a song from the film, it won an Oscar and became one of the most iconic tracks of the 2000s. Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny is Jack Black and Kyle Gass on a ridiculous rock-fueled quest to find a magical guitar pick. It's part parody, part origin story, and totally unhinged. The movie flopped, but the fans, well, they think it's the greatest movie of all time. Through the Never takes a Metallica concert and overlays it with a bizarre apocalyptic narrative. There's a masked horseman, riots in the streets, and some seriously wild visuals. The plot doesn't all track logically, but as an experience, it's absolutely killer. Studio 666 puts the Foo Fighters in a haunted house where Dave Grohl gets possessed while recording an album. It's gory, goofy, and full of metal energy. Sadly, it was released just before the tragic passing of drummer Taylor Hawkins, giving the whole thing a bittersweet tone. Most recently, Ghost anointed theaters with Right Here, Right Now. To me, this one felt like it was inspired by Through the Never, much like a lot of times that Ghost seems to be taking cues from Metallica's career. It includes an entire concert performance, but also weaves in silly narrative vignettes that tell the story of the end of Papa Emeritus IV's tenure as vocalist for the band, clearing the way for Papa Perpetua, or as fans have lovingly referred to him,
Fucking V.
So, did I miss any? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for hanging out for this trip through the wonderfully weird world of music and movies.